The seal opens at the appointed hour, and the ship exhales. I am Tithe Auditor 3rd Class Harren Voss, Munitorum Administrative Corps, seconded to Naval Prize Recovery Command for one sanctioned boarding operation. The order came through 12 hours before embarkation. Assess viability, catalog holdings, verify population compliance. Standard procedure for reclaimed vessels. The plague Voidship Merciful Benediction drifted back into real space 72 hours ago, broadcasting Imperial clearance codes 3 centuries obsolete but structurally intact. Fleet Command designated it recoverable. My duty is to confirm what can be salvaged before the ship is either inducted into tithe rotation or scuttled for component harvest. The chronometer built into my rebreather mask displays the countdown in amber numerals. 11 hours, 59 minutes, 47 seconds. Dawn cycle will arrive whether I complete the audit or not. The difference is whether I leave aboard a shuttle or remain sealed inside when the scuttling charges detonate. Commander Halks speaks the opening catechism from memory, his voice flat through the Vox grill. The words are high Gothic, worn smooth by repetition across 10,000 similar operations. I recognize the cadence, even if half the syllables blur together. The catechism promises containment through correct sequence, purity through adherence to form. It promises that if each action follows ordained pattern, then corruption cannot persist beyond its designated boundaries. The naval armsmen flanking the commander hold suppression carbines at ready positions, their postures disciplined but not tense. They have done this before. The Mechanicus tech adept accompanying us hums a binaric prayer that sounds like insects dying inside machinery. The quarantine seal is 3 meters across, reinforced ceramite scored with purity marks that predate my birth. It should open with the hydraulic shriek of ancient mechanisms reluctantly surrendering. Instead, it irises smoothly, almost gently, segments retracting into the bulkhead with barely a whisper of displaced air. The breath that emerges carries heat, not the recycled warmth of functioning life support, but something closer to body temperature, humid and thick. My rebreather filters analyze the composition. Oxygen-nitrogen mix within tolerable parameters, trace organics elevated but not critical, no active toxins registered. The air should be dead, stagnant, the exhalation of a tomb. It feels like standing too close to someone sleeping. I activate my data slate and begin logging. Entry timestamp, atmospheric readings, seal integrity status. The forms are familiar, comforting in their precision. Each field has a designated purpose. Each measurement confirms that reality remains quantifiable. Commander Halks gestures forward, and the armsmen advance in textbook formation, weapons sweeping corners that cannot yet be seen. The tech adept follows, his multiple mechadendrites tasting the air with sensor arrays. I move with them because the audit cannot be conducted from outside. The moment I cross the threshold, the seal begins closing behind us. Not quickly, not with any sense of urgency, but with the inevitability of something completing a familiar action. The commander does not order it stopped. This is procedure. Once inside, the ship becomes our environment until the operation concludes. The chronometer counts backward, 11 hours, 56 minutes, 12 seconds. The first corridor extends 40 meters before branching. Lighting flickers between standard lumen white and something warmer, more golden, that seems to emanate from the walls themselves rather than designated fixtures. My data slate maps the route automatically, overlaying our position against schematics pulled from Admiralty archives. The Merciful Benediction was originally a Dictator-class cruiser, hull number obscured by time and whatever warp translation stripped its registry clean. The schematics show crew capacity of 25,000, cargo volume sufficient for 3 planetary tithes, armament moderate but serviceable, a functional vessel, if aged. The kind of ship that forms the Imperium's logistical backbone unnoticed, uncelebrated, working until it cannot. We encounter the first bodies 17 meters inside. They are not sprawled or scattered. They stand at attention along both walls, hands clasped behind backs in parade rest, faces angled slightly upward as if awaiting inspection. There are 12 of them. Their uniforms identify them as ratings, third-tier deck crew, the kind of personnel who spend entire lives moving cargo and maintaining corridors without ever seeing command spaces. The fabric hangs strangely on their frames, as if it has grown into their flesh rather than merely covering it. Their eyes are open. They track our movement with slow, exhausted precision. "Cataloguing personnel," I say into my Vox recorder, keeping my voice steady. 12 individuals, ratings classification, presenting symptoms of advanced warp exposure, but maintaining structural integrity, recommending quarantine evaluation upon extraction. One of them speaks. His voice is dry, cracked, but the words are clear. Compliance acknowledged. Inspection protocols active. Awaiting processing. The armsmen tense but do not fire. Commander Halks raises one hand, signaling hold. The tech adept extends a mechadendrite and performs a bioscan. Seconds pass. The device emits a soft chime. No active contagion detected. The tech adept reports, his voice modulated through a vocabulator that removes all inflection. Biological functions minimal but present, no immediate threat indicators. The commander nods once. Logged as non-hostile. Continue sweep. We move past them. I glance back once and see them still standing, still watching, mouths moving in silent recitation of something I cannot hear. My data slate records their positions. The forms require enumeration. 12 bodies. Ambulatory status uncertain. Compliance demonstrated. I note the discrepancy between no active contagion and the way their skin seems to ripple slightly when they breathe, as if something beneath the surface adjusts itself with each inhalation. The note goes into a subsection marked for secondary review, primary assessment, recoverable assets pending further evaluation. The chronometer updates. 11 hours, 51 minutes, 38 seconds. We reach the first junction, and the commander consults his own data slate. Habdecks are priority. Population verification before cargo assessment. Standard rotation. The armsmen acknowledge and adjust formation. I follow because my presence is required for official documentation. The Munitorum does not accept naval testimony alone. A dedicated auditor must witness and countersign. This is how accountability functions. This is how the Imperium ensures that no resource vanishes unrecorded, no asset goes unaccounted. Even here, inside a plague ship drifting back from warp-tainted oblivion, the forms must be filed correctly. The habdecks occupy levels 3 through 7. Each level divided into warren-like compartments, housing 60 souls per section. The schematics show standard configuration: sleeping racks, communal ablution facilities, devotional alcoves for mandatory prayer cycles. We enter level 3 through a pressure door that opens smoothly despite its age. The lighting inside shifts as we advance. Lumen strips mounted on the ceiling flicker in sequence, creating the impression of movement in our peripheral vision. The walls bear standard Imperial devotional texts stenciled in fading red paint, the lettering precise but worn. Between the texts, someone has added marks in a darker substance, not graffiti, but small tallies arranged in groups of 5. Counting something. I do not photograph them. The first compartment we inspect contains 43 occupants. They sit on their racks in perfect rows, hands folded in their laps, heads bowed. Their clothing is identical, simple grey shifts issued to civilian tithe workers. None of them look up when we enter. The tech adept performs another sweep. His mechadendrites probe the air, sample surfaces, measure thermal output. The device chimes again. Ambient temperature elevated 3 degrees above expected baseline. No machinery detected operating within this compartment. Biological heat signatures present but irregular. Commander Halks steps forward. "You are crew of the Merciful Benediction. State your status." They respond in unison, voices blending into a single exhausted chorus. Compliant. Awaiting instruction. Ready for duty reassignment. "How long have you been aboard this vessel?" Silence. Then, From somewhere in the middle rows, a single voice. Since last muster, since the call, since we were needed. The commander exchanges a glance with his senior armsman. I document the exchange, noting ambiguity and temporal reference. The question goes unanswered in any meaningful sense, but resistance has not been demonstrated. Compliance is present, if incoherent. The commander makes a decision. Mark this compartment as conditionally habitable. Quarantine protocols to be determined by Medicae assessment. Seal and continue. One of the armsmen attaches a magnetic indicator to the door frame, a yellow disc denoting partial clearance. We withdraw and the door closes behind us. Through the narrow viewport, I see the occupants remain motionless, still waiting. We inspect 6 more compartments across level 3. Each contains between 30 and 50 occupants. Each demonstrates identical posture, identical compliance, identical exhaustion. None resist. None flee. In the 4th compartment, I notice that several occupants have hands fused to the railing of their racks, flesh grown around metal in seamless union. In the 6th compartment, the air tastes sweet despite my rebreather, a cloying thickness that coats my tongue. My dataslate logs atmospheric composition as unchanged. I add a note about sensory discrepancy and move on. The chronometer counts 11 hours, 37 minutes, 9 seconds. Level 4 introduces the first significant deviation. The compartments here are darker, the lumen strips failing in sequence rather than flickering. The Tech Adept illuminates our path with a handheld luxcaster, its beam carving harsh shadows from the walls. The devotional texts here are obscured, covered over with layered paint that someone has applied in slow, careful strokes. Beneath the paint, I can see the original lettering bleeding through fragments of prayers to the God Emperor, his protection, his judgment. The paint itself is reddish-brown, organic in texture. I do not ask what substance was used. The occupants in these compartments do not sit. They stand facing the walls, foreheads pressed against metal, mouths moving in silent repetition. When the commander speaks to them, they do not turn. Their compliance is demonstrated through continued stillness, through the absence of hostility rather than active cooperation. The Tech Adept scans return identical results: minimal function, no active contagion, ambient heat without source. The commander marks each compartment with yellow discs. We do not linger. In the 8th compartment on level 4, we find the first prayers audible enough to parse. A woman stands with her back to us, hands spread flat against the bulkhead, voice low and rhythmic. The Emperor provides. The Emperor contains. The Emperor measures our flesh and finds it sufficient. The Emperor's mercy is absolute, and we persist within its boundaries. The words are not heretical, they are structurally orthodox, even if the phrasing feels wrong, too intimate, too bodily. Faith is permitted its expressions. Devotion manifests in forms that doctrine does not always predict. I log the prayer verbatim for theological review and continue documentation. We descend to level 5. Here, the air changes. My rebreather compensates immediately, but I taste it anyway, something medicinal and rotten in equal measure. Sweet like overripe fruit, left too long in heat. The walls glisten slightly, condensation or something similar coating the metal. The Tech Adept's sensors detect elevated moisture, but no contaminants. The lumen strips are amber now, casting everything in jaundiced light. The compartments are full. Every rack occupied, bodies pressed close in defiance of standard spacing regulations. They do not move when we enter. They do not breathe in any rhythm I recognize. The commander orders a more thorough scan. The Tech Adept deploys 3 additional mechadendrites, each tipped with different sensor arrays. Minutes pass. The occupants remain perfectly still. I document their arrangement, noting the efficiency of their positioning, not crowded, but optimized, as if someone carefully calculated maximum occupancy. Biological function detected, the Tech Adept announces finally. Minimal, sufficient for classification as living, no hostility indicators, no movement capacity confirmed. Survivors, the commander asks. Defined how? The commander does not answer immediately. He steps closer to the nearest rack, studying the occupant, a man whose face has settled into an expression of profound relief, eyes half closed, mouth relaxed. The man's chest does not rise. His skin has the waxy quality of something preserved rather than maintained. Can they be extracted? The tech adept performs another scan. Extraction would require severance. They are integrated with their environment at multiple points. Removal would constitute lethal trauma. Commander Halks considers this. I watch his jaw work behind his rebreather, the calculation visible in the tightness around his eyes. Finally, log them as immobile assets. Quarantine designation, pending Medicaid review. They're not consuming resources and they're not hostile. We assess further after cargo verification. The decision is lawful. It follows established protocols for ambiguous biological findings. I countersign the entry on my data slate, adding my authorization code. The responsibility is now distributed between Naval Command and Munitorum Oversight. No single individual bears the full weight. We seal Level 5 and move to 6. The chronometer reads 11 hours, 19 minutes, 53 seconds. Level 6 houses the infirmary sanctum. The schematics designate it as a combined Medicaid Bay and devotional treatment center, where injuries are addressed and prayers for recovery administered in tandem. The doors are marked with the dual symbols of the Adeptus Medicae and the Ecclesiarchy, faded but still recognizable. Commander Halks enters first, carbine raised despite all previous encounters demonstrating passivity. The armsmen follow, then the tech adept, then myself. The lighting inside is harsh and clean, proper lumen white unmarred by the amber glow elsewhere. The smell hits immediately, strong enough that my rebreather struggles. Antiseptic and rot, incense and bile, sweetness and decay layered so thoroughly that individual components become indistinguishable. Medicaid servitors move between rows of cots, their augmetic limbs performing procedures with mechanical precision. There are perhaps 30 servitors active, each attending to multiple patients simultaneously. The patients do not move. I step closer to the nearest cot. The occupant is a woman, middle-aged, her body wrapped in stained bandages that someone has changed recently. Her eyes are open, staring at the ceiling with the fixed intensity of deep contemplation. Her chest does not rise. A servitor approaches, extending a corroded syringe, and injects amber fluid into her neck. The woman does not react. The servitor moves to the next cot and repeats the action. Still treating them, one of the armsmen says, voice tight. Even though they're functional, the commander interrupts. The servitors are still functional. The tech adept extends his sensors and samples the air, the fluids, the bandages. His analysis takes longer here, mechadendrites moving in complex patterns as data accumulates. When he speaks, his vocabulator crackles slightly, as if the words themselves resist translation. Treatment protocols active. Pharmaceutical compounds detected, some standard imperial antiseptics, some unregistered. Servitor programming intact. No deviation from core function observed. Patients are. He pauses. Patients are receiving care. Are the patients alive? Commander Halks asks. That depends on acceptable definitions. The commander's hand tightens on his carbine. I step forward before the situation calcifies. Do the servitors pose a threat? The tech adept's optics whir as he focuses on me. No. They are performing their designated function. Interrupting their workflow could be considered wasteful. Wasteful. The word settles over the room like ash. Imperial doctrine is clear on waste. Resources are sacred. They're squandering a sin against the Emperor's economy. Servitors represent significant investment training, augmentation, programming. Their continued function, even in circumstances as ambiguous as this, preserves that investment. The patients they treat may not be alive in any conventional sense, but they are present, occupying designated space, receiving designated care. The system persists. Commander Halks lowers his weapon slightly. Can we shut them down? Yes. The tech adept confirms. Should we? The question hangs. I watch a servitor clean a wound that does not bleed, apply a fresh bandage to skin that does not bruise. The action is complete, professional, correct. The patient remains still, eyes tracking nothing, mouth slightly open. Another servitor approaches with a tray of instruments, scalpels, clamps, sutures, all meticulously clean despite their obvious age. It begins a procedure I do not recognize, making precise incisions that reveal flesh beneath. The flesh is gray, fibrous, wrong. The servitor continues with perfect calm. Their imperial property, I say finally. My voice sounds distant even to myself. Functioning imperial property, performing assigned duties. Shutting them down would constitute unauthorized destruction of assets. That requires higher authorization than this operation provides. The words taste like metal. Commander Halk stares at me, then at the servitors, then back. He understands the logic, even as something in his expression rejects it. But logic is what governs us here, in this room where the dead receive exemplary care. Logic, and the forms that logic demands we complete. Logged, he says. Servitors remain operational. Infirmary sanctum classified as active medical facility, quarantine status to be determined by senior Medicaid authority upon extraction. I add my countersignature. The servitors continue their rounds, moving between cots with the tireless efficiency of mechanisms that have never known doubt. I force myself to watch one complete cycle. Injection, observation, bandage change, notation on a slate covered in symbols I don't recognize, movement to the next patient. The ritual is perfect. I wonder how long it has continued. I wonder if the servitors remember when their patients last spoke. We exit the infirmary. The doors seal behind us with a soft hiss that sounds like contentment. The chronometer displays 11 hours, 4 minutes, 27 seconds. Level 7 is crew quarters for senior ratings and minor officers. The compartments are larger here, some with private sleeping alcoves, most with dedicated workstations. The lighting is amber throughout, no flicker, no variation. The walls are covered in detailed tallies, thousands of them, arranged in perfect columns, each mark identical in size and spacing. I photograph several sections for later analysis. The marks continue into the compartments themselves, covering bunks, desks, even the ceiling in some cases. Someone has been counting for a very long time. The occupants here are different. They do not stand at attention or press their faces to walls or lie passive in racks. They work. At the desks, at the terminals, at maintenance panels that appear functional despite the ship's obvious age and trauma. They write in logs, adjust settings, perform diagnostics. Their movements are slow but purposeful. When we enter, they glance up briefly, nod acknowledgement, and return to their tasks. Commander Halks approaches the nearest worker, a man whose uniform identifies him as a cargo supervisor. State your name and current duty. The man looks up again, eyes focusing with visible effort. Cargo Supervisor Merrick Ton, currently reconciling manifest discrepancies for holds 3 through 7. Expected completion, 6 hours, 14 minutes. How long have you been performing this duty? Since last cycle. Since the discrepancies were noted. When was last cycle? Ton's expression does not change. Since the last time I completed this duty. The circular logic suggests cognitive damage, but the man's hands move with steady precision across his data slate, entering figures and notations in proper Munitorum format. I lean closer and see the manifest he's working from. The date stamp is 847, M41, 93 years ago. The cargo codes are formatted correctly, the tallies precise, the handwriting immaculate. Supervisor Ton, I say, keeping my voice neutral. Can you verify current date? He pauses, stylus hovering over the slate. Current date is when last recorded, when last verified, when the cycle requires. What year is it? His eyes meet mine. There is something in them, not confusion, but a kind of profound weariness, as if the question itself exhausts him. The year when duty continues. I do not press further. The commander signals continue and we move through the level, documenting additional workers at their stations. An engineer recalibrates a power relay that shows no signs of malfunction. A quartermaster reviews supply requests written in a language I don't recognize. A Vox operator transcribes messages from a dead channel, her pen moving steadily across pages already covered in dense script. They are all working. They are all compliant. They are all so deeply tired that exhaustion has become their permanent state. We find no hostility. We find no resistance. We find duty persisting beyond the collapse of context. The tech adept performs his scans and confirms. Minimal biological function, no active contagion, ambient heat exceeding expected baseline by 4 degrees. The workers do not acknowledge our presence beyond initial recognition. They do not stop. In one compartment, I notice that a woman's fingers have fused partially to her stylus, flesh growing around the implement so that it has become part of her hand. She writes continuously, covering page after page with the same sentence repeated in perfect script. The Emperor measures all debts, and all debts are paid in time. Commander Hawks orders all of Level 7 marked as operational crew quarters, conditional status pending command review. Yellow discs are affixed to every door. We withdraw to the central stairwell and descend toward the cargo holds. The chronometer counts 10 hours, 48 minutes, 11 seconds. Between levels 7 and 8, something changes. The temperature drops. My rebreather's sensors note the shift 3 degrees in the span of 10 steps, then 5, then 7. By the time we reach the 8th level entrance, my breath mists the viewport of my mask. The lighting dims but does not fail, amber glow reducing to a sullen orange that barely illuminates the corridor ahead. This level is not designated on the schematics, or rather, it exists as a notation marked Restricted Command Authorization Required without further detail. Commander Hawks consults his data slate, frowns, and overrides the designation with his naval authority codes. The door opens with a prolonged shriek of metal, the first truly mechanical sound we've encountered. Beyond lies a corridor narrower than those above, ceiling lower, walls closer. The air here tastes wrong, even through filtration not contaminated, but heavy, resistant, as if pressure has condensed into something almost solid. We advance slowly. The armsmen check corners with exaggerated care. The tech adept's sensors sweep constantly. I document the space, noting the absence of standard markings, the lack of devotional texts, the walls' smooth uniformity. It feels transitional, a space between spaces, somewhere people pass through but never inhabit. The corridor terminates at a vault door marked only with a serial number. Commander Hawks examines it briefly, then gestures to the tech adept. "Can you open this?" Mechadendrites extend, interfacing with the door's control mechanism. Seconds pass. A minute. The tech adept emits a burst of frustrated Banaric cant. "The lock is not sealed," he says finally. It simply requests proper authorization, which is a prayer, specific phrasing. The door will open if the correct words are spoken. The absurdity of it registers even as I accept it as inevitable. Imperial security often incorporates devotional elements, passwords as prayers, access codes as catechisms. The logic is sound. Those who know the proper words have been properly trained, properly indoctrinated, properly trusted. The door is not locked by mechanism, but by faith. Commander Hawks tries several standard devotionals. The door remains sealed. The tech adept attempts authentication through his connection, feeding various prayer sequences into the system. Nothing works. We stand in the cold corridor, staring at a door that requires something we do not possess. Then I hear it. Soft, distant, barely audible through the metal, singing. No, not singing, chanting, voices in unison, reciting something rhythmic and low. The sound does not come from beyond the door, but through it, vibrations traveling through the metal itself. I press my gloved hand against the surface and feel it a pulse, steady and slow, matching the rhythm of the chant. "Do you hear that?" I ask. The others pause. Commander Halks nods slowly. "Vox channel interference?" The tech adept checks. No transmissions detected on any frequency. The chanting continues. I close my eyes and focus, trying to parse individual words from the collective rhythm. The language is High Gothic, archaic but comprehensible. And in the Emperor's mercy we find our function. And in our function we find his mercy. And mercy measures all things. And we are measured. I speak the words aloud, letting them echo in the corridor. The door opens. Not with a mechanical release, but with a long exhalation, segments retracting into the frame with the organic smoothness of something relaxing. The air that emerges is warm, almost hot, carrying scents of incense and machine oil and something underneath that my mind refuses to categorize. The chanting grows louder but remains directionless, sourceless, as if the ship itself is reciting. Beyond the door lies the primary cargo hold. It is vast. The schematic suggested size, but seeing it conveys scale that numbers cannot. A chamber extending hundreds of meters, ceiling lost in darkness, walls lined with tiered storage that rises until perspective collapses. The amber glow here is stronger, emanating from the cargo itself rather than any installed lighting. And the cargo is not what was listed. The manifests I reviewed before embarkation specified standard tithe. Grain from 7 agri-worlds, processed rations, raw textiles. What fills the hold are sealed containers, each 3 meters tall and 2 wide, arranged in perfect rows that extend into the darkness. The containers are not metal but something organic, translucent enough that I can see shapes moving inside, not with purpose, not with consciousness, but with the slow writhing of things that exist without living. The seals bear purity marks, proper imperial stamps, authorization codes that check valid when I scan them. The tech adept approaches the nearest container. His mechadendrites extend, sampling the material. Biological matter, he reports. High density. Cellular activity present but minimal. No waste production detected. No consumption of resources. It is stable. What was it before? Commander Halks asks. Before? What was this? People? Animals? What got transformed into this? The tech adept sensors probe deeper. Long seconds pass. When he speaks again, his vocabulator distorts slightly, as if the words themselves resist proper encoding. The manifest listed grain tithe. At molecular level, this material retains grain proteins, lipid structures consistent with processed grain, but reorganized, compressed, made efficient. I feel my stomach turn despite professional composure. It's still tithe? Technically, by weight and composition, it fulfills the tithe requirement more efficiently than original format. The containers pulse slightly, rhythmically, in time with the ship's engines. I step closer and see that each container connects to the floor through organic conduits, root-like structures that spread beneath the deck plating. The whole cargo system is integrated, feeding something or being fed by something. The chanting I heard earlier emanates from here, not from the containers themselves, but from the space between them, the air itself vibrating with repeated prayer. Commander Halks turns in a slow circle, taking in the magnitude. How much is here? Calculating, the tech adept says. His sensors sweep the hold. Approximately 8,000 containers. Average weight per container, 400 kilograms. Total tithe value. He pauses. Exceeds 3 standard planetary yields. Properly sealed, properly marked, properly processed according to stamp authentication. It's wrong, one of the armsmen says, voice tight. Sir, this is wrong. It's efficient, the tech adept counters. It fulfills tithe requirements with minimal storage space and 0 maintenance. No spoilage, no loss, no waste. The commander's hand rests on his holstered sidearm. I watch him wrestle with the logic, seeing the calculation in his eyes. The tithe is valid, the stamps are authentic. The material, however transformed, technically satisfies the Imperium's demands. Refusing to accept it would constitute interference with tithe delivery, a serious offense. Accepting it means transporting. This. Can it be moved? He asks finally. Yes, the tech adept confirms. The containers are sealed and stable. Relocation would require standard cargo procedures. They pose no immediate threat. No immediate threat, the commander repeats. He looks at me. Auditor Voss, your assessment? I consult my data slate, reviewing the relevant regulations. The Munitorum tithe protocols are clear. Processed tithe must meet minimum quality standards, maintain proper chain of custody, and bear valid authorization stamps. All three criteria are technically satisfied. The method of processing is not specified. The final form is not restricted. Only the value and validity matter. It's compliant, I say, hating each word. By documentation standards, this constitutes acceptable tithe. I can't reject it without evidence of contamination or falsification. Both would require extensive analysis beyond this operation's scope. The armsmen shift uncomfortably. The tech adept remains impassive. Commander Halk stares at the containers, at the pulsing organic mass that was grain once, at the stamps that make it legally indistinguishable from legitimate cargo. Mark it for quarantine transport, he says finally. We document everything, seal the hold, and let command decide. We're not qualified to make this determination. I add my authorization to the logging. The responsibility disperses further, spreading across more shoulders until no one bears enough weight to break under it. The cargo will be transported. Someone else will decide what to do with it. Someone else will accept or reject. We are only here to document and verify. The chanting continues, wordless now, just rhythm and breath. The chronometer displays 10 hours, 23 minutes, 44 seconds. We ascend back through the ship, retracing our path toward the command levels. The temperature normalizes as we climb. The amber light brightens. Behind us, the cargo hold remains sealed, its contents pulsing in the dark, waiting for extraction or destruction or continued existence in whatever form the Imperium decrees appropriate. Level 9 is command deck access. The corridor here is wider, the walls bearing honor rolls listing previous commanders and notable crew. The names are legible, but the dates are wrong, some too old, predating the ship's construction, others too recent, extending into years not yet past. Someone has maintained these rolls carefully, adding names in neat script, preserving the tradition even as chronology collapsed into meaningless sequence. We encounter crew here as well. They wear officers' uniforms, faded but intact, and they move with purpose between stations that still show signs of function. A lieutenant monitors Auspex displays showing static. A quartermaster reviews supply manifests identical to those I saw on level 7. A commissar stands at attention beside a door marked Command Sanctum, his posture perfect, his eyes focused on nothing. Commander Halks approaches the commissar. State your rank and current duty. The commissar's gaze shifts, focuses. Commissar 7th grade Harren Weiss, maintaining command access security, awaiting authorization for shift change. How long have you been on duty? Since last relief, since the schedule required. When was last relief? The commissar's jaw tightens slightly. When the rotation specifies. Another circular answer. Another mind locked in procedural loop, executing function without context. The commissar's uniform bears campaign badges. I recognize the Orpheus salient, the Calth suppression, battles fought decades before my birth. He has been standing here, maintaining his post, for longer than I have existed. We need access to Command Sanctum, Commander Halks says. The commissar does not move. Authorization required. I am Commander Halks, Naval Prize Recovery Command. I have authority to access all ship systems during recovery operations. Authorization accepted. However, Commander Halks is currently inside Command Sanctum. Additional entry would constitute overcapacity violation. We pause. I consult the schematics on my data slate. They show no current occupancy logs. The tech adept scans the door and the space beyond. His sensors detect no life signs, no active movement. There is no one inside, the tech adept reports. The commissar's expression does not change. Commander Hawks entered command sanctum at shift commencement. Commander Hawks has not exited. Therefore, Commander Hawks remains inside. "I am Commander Hawks," our commander says, his patience audibly thinning. "Right here, in front of you." Noted, the commissar acknowledges. However, Commander Hawks is also inside command sanctum. Paradox does not invalidate procedure. I step forward before the situation escalates. "Commissar Weiss, can you confirm Commander Hawks's current location by direct observation?" The commissar looks at me. His eyes are grey, exhausted, but focused. I observe Commander Hawks standing before me. I also observe Commander Hawks's presence inside command sanctum via authorization log. Both observations are factual, can both be true simultaneously. The logs do not lie. It is flawless procedural logic trapped in impossible contradiction. The commissar believes completely in the records, in the systems that track and verify and maintain order. Those systems tell him Commander Hawks is inside. His eyes tell him Commander Hawks is outside. He accepts both as equally valid, because to question one would be to question all, and without the logs, there is only chaos. Commander Hawks draws his sidearm and points it at the door's lock mechanism. "Stand aside, Commissar." The commissar does not move. His hand rests on his own holstered weapon. Forced entry constitutes unauthorized access. My duty is to prevent unauthorized access. Your duty is to obey superior officers. My duty is to maintain security protocols. Commander Hawks gave me this duty. I will not fail, Commander Hawks. The two men face each other, trapped in a logic that permits no resolution. I see the calculation happening behind the commander's eyes, whether to shoot the lock, whether to shoot the commissar, whether either action serves any purpose when the entire ship operates on rules that no longer align with external reality. The armsmen ready their weapons but do not aim. The tech adept observes with mechanical interest. I make a decision I will regret. "Commissar Weiss," I say. "I am Ty the Auditor, 3rd Class Harren Voss, Munitorum Administrative Corps. I have authority to issue temporary operational modifications during resource verification procedures. I hereby authorize Commander Hawks's entry into Command Sanctum as part of official audit requirements. This authorization supersedes prior log entries." The Commissar considers this. His hand slowly lifts from his weapon. "Munitorum authority is acceptable. Temporary operational modification logged. Access granted for audit duration." He steps aside. The door opens. The command sanctum is empty. Not empty of life, empty of everything. The space beyond should contain command thrones, tactical displays, Auspex stations, Vox arrays. Instead, there is only bare deck plating, bare walls, bare ceiling. The amber glow is absent here, replaced by cold lumen white that makes the emptiness absolute. We enter slowly, weapons ready despite the obvious lack of threat. In the exact center of the deck, someone has placed a simple wooden chair. On the chair sits a uniform command officer's dress blacks, perfectly pressed, decorated with rank insignia and service medals. The uniform is arranged as if being worn, as if someone sits invisible within it, hands resting on invisible knees, posture perfectly upright. Commander Hawks approaches carefully. He reaches out and touches the uniform. His hand passes through the shoulder without resistance. There is nothing there, just the uniform, maintaining its shape through no means I can perceive. Scanning, the tech adept announces. His sensors focus on the chair, the uniform, the space they occupy. Long moments pass. No physical presence detected. No hard light projection. No active technology. The uniform maintains position through. He pauses, through habit. through the space's expectation that something should occupy that position. "That's not possible," one of the armsmen says. "Correct," the tech adept agrees, yet observed. I photograph the scene, documenting it for records that I know will be redacted. The uniform sits in empty space, worn by nothing, preserved by some combination of repetition and belief so deep that reality bends to accommodate it. The Emperor protects through faith, and faith manifests in ways that defy material logic. This is what I was taught. This is what I am witnessing. Commander Halks circles the chair once, twice. He does not touch the uniform again. Finally, he gestures toward the walls. "Check for documentation, logs, orders, anything that explains what happened here." We spread out, searching. The walls are blank, the deck is clean. There are no terminals, no storage, no hidden compartments. The room contains only what we brought with us, and the uniform sitting on its chair, maintained by nothing, waiting for someone who will never return, or who never left, or who exists in the same impossible duality as the Commissar's observations. I find the only anomaly. Carved into the deck plating near the far wall, letters scratched with something sharp, the work of hours or days or years. The Emperor measures. The Emperor remembers. The Emperor completes. We serve the completion. The text is in High Gothic, formal and precise. I photograph it and add it to my documentation. The words feel liturgical, almost orthodox, but the phrasing is wrong, too focused on completion, on ending, on measurement without redemption. Faith should promise salvation. These words promise only accounting. We withdraw from the command sanctum. The Commissar remains at his post as we pass, eyes forward, duty preserved. The door closes behind us with a definitive click. The chronometer counts, 9 hours, 58 minutes, 19 seconds. We continue upward, toward the bridge. This is the heart of any Voidship, the space from which all operations flow, where authority crystallizes into action, where the vessel's will and the commander's will become indistinguishable. Standard protocol requires bridge verification before final assessment. The schematics show it 2 levels above command deck, accessible through a ceremonial stairwell lined with statuary honoring the Emperor and the Primarchs. The statues are present but transformed. Time and warp exposure have corroded them into forms that only partially resemble their original subjects. The Emperor's face has blurred into featureless serenity. The Primarch's poses have shifted, arms bent at angles that suggest weariness rather than triumph. Someone has draped each statue with prayer scrolls, thousands of them, layering the stone in paper until the figures disappear beneath accumulated devotion. The scrolls are old, brittle, covered in writing too small and too dense to read. I photograph several but do not touch them. They feel important, necessary, as if removing them would cause something structural to fail. The bridge doors bear the Imperial Aquila, wings spread in eternal vigilance. The metal is warm to the touch, almost hot, and I feel vibration through my gloves, that same rhythmic pulse that permeates the ship. Commander Hulk speaks the proper litany for bridge access. The doors do not respond. He tries again, louder, more precisely. Nothing. The tech adept interfaces directly with the door mechanism. The bridge is sealed from inside. Override requires authorization code, which I have, Commander Hulk says, entering his command cipher. Accepted but insufficient. Bridge seal requires authorization from current commanding officer. Current commanding officer is aboard this vessel? According to logs, yes. We stand in the corridor, facing the sealed bridge, knowing that beyond lies either answers or another layer of impossible procedure. The Commissar was correct. Someone is inside, logged and verified, maintaining their post with perfect discipline. Someone who may not exist in any conventional sense, but whose authority remains absolute within the ship's systems. I think about the uniform on the chair. I think about the crew maintaining their duties without breath. I think about the way the ship itself seems to remember what it should be, even as material reality contradicts every function. Can we force entry? Commander Halks asks. Yes, the tech adept confirms. However, forcing entry may trigger defensive protocols. This ship retains some weapons capacity. Directed internally, those weapons would be disadvantageous. The threat is clear. We can enter, but the ship might decide we are hostile. The ship might defend itself. Or more accurately, the ship's systems might defend what they believe should be present, what the logs insist remains valid, what some commander who may be gone or may be everywhere has ordered preserved. Commander Halks holsters his weapon. We log it as inaccessible. Bridge assessment deferred pending command level authorization. We've verified enough. I add the notation. The bridge remains sealed, its secrets preserved, its commanding officer maintaining their duties behind doors we lack authority to breach. Part of me is relieved. Part of me knows that whatever exists beyond those doors would only confirm what we already understand. This ship functions because it refuses to acknowledge its own impossibility. We descend back through the levels, moving toward the primary exit point. The chronometer continues its countdown. 9 hours, 41 minutes, 7 seconds. More than enough time to complete extraction and withdraw. More than enough time to file our reports and let command decide what happens next. But between levels 6 and 5, something changes. The lighting shifts from amber to red. Not emergency lighting, there are no klaxons, no warning sirens, just a slow transition from warm glow to bloody illumination that makes every surface look organic. The temperature drops again, sharper this time, cold enough that my breath mists inside my rebreather. The Vox channels, silent since our entry, suddenly crackle with overlapping traffic. Compliance acknowledged, proceeding to secondary inspection. Manifest verification complete. All tallies accurate. Requesting relief. Shift duration has exceeded. The Emperor measures. The Emperor remembers. Dawn cycle approaching. All personnel to stations. The voices are human, exhausted, professional. They are conducting the same operation we are, speaking the same protocols, encountering the same conditions. I realize with slow horror that we are hearing previous boarding operations. Not recordings, active transmissions, happening simultaneously, overlapping with our present. Time inside the ship has folded, compressed, allowing past attempts to bleed through into current experience. Shut it down, Commander Halks orders. The tech adept tries. His mechadendrites interface with our Vox system, attempting to sever connections and establish isolated channels. The transmissions continue, growing louder, more urgent. They're not hostile, just mark them for quarantine. The cargo is technically compliant, we have to accept it. She's been standing here since last shift, but last shift was... I don't remember entering this compartment before, but the logs say, how much time do we have left? The chronometer keeps... I check my own chronometer. The display flickers, numbers shifting. 9 hours, 38 minutes, 22 seconds. Then 9 hours, 41 minutes, 9 seconds. Then 8 hours, 12 minutes, 53 seconds. Time is desyncing, the countdown losing coherence even as it continues. I do not know how long we have been aboard. I do not know how long remains. We need to extract, the senior armsman says, voice tight with controlled panic. Now, sir. Commander Halks nods. Back to the entry point. Maintain formation. We move quickly, descending through the stairwells we climbed hours ago. But the ship has changed. Corridors branch in directions I do not remember. Compartments appear that were not present before, or were present but sealed, or were always there but somehow invisible. The devotional texts on the walls have multiplied, prayers spreading across metal like infection, words overlapping until language becomes abstract pattern. We pass crew members moving between stations. They do not acknowledge us. They do not see us. We are ghosts haunting their routine, or they are ghosts haunting ours. I cannot determine which possibility is correct. Time has collapsed into simultaneity, past and present occupying the same space. Every boarding operation that ever occurred on this ship happening together, layered transparently over each other. The Vox traffic intensifies. This is Commander Halks, requesting immediate extraction. Situation has deteriorated. No response from command. The shuttle cannot find our position. Chronometer malfunction confirmed. Duration indeterminate. They're not attacking us. They're just working. They won't stop working. How long have we been here? Someone check the logs. Someone verify. I recognize some of the voices. They are ours. The transmissions are us, calling for extraction, logging our growing desperation, documenting the moment we understood that the night would not end as scheduled. We are hearing our own future overlapping with our present, warnings traveling backward through collapsed time. Keep moving, Commander Halks orders, his voice carrying an edge of command that demands obedience when understanding fails. We reach level 3, and the landscape has fundamentally changed. The habdecks have expanded, multiplied, corridor systems spreading in fractal complexity that should not fit within the ship's known dimensions. Every direction leads to more compartments, more occupants standing or sitting or working, more yellow markers indicating conditional clearance, more accumulated prayer scrolls, more tallies carved into metal, more heat, more humidity, more of the sweet medicinal rot that coats everything. The tech adept consults his sensors frantically. Spatial geometry is inconsistent. Interior volume exceeds exterior measurements by significant margin. Either the hull dimensions are misrepresented, or we are experiencing localized spatial distortion, or the ship is bigger on the inside because it believes it should be, I interrupt. My voice sounds distant, mechanical, reciting conclusion without processing meaning. It has been operating for so long that its internal logic supersedes physical constraints. The Imperium teaches that faith shapes reality. The crew has faith in their duties. The ship has faith in its structure. Faith persists when matter fails. The others stare at me. I stare back, seeing my reflection in their visors, a figure in munitorum colors, data slate clutched in both hands, posture rigid with discipline that has not yet broken. We need extraction coordinates, Commander Halks says. Confirm our position relative to entry point. The tech adept tries. His sensors probe outward, mapping, calculating. Long seconds pass. Unable to establish fixed reference, our entry point no longer appears in spatial mapping, or it appears in multiple locations simultaneously, or we have moved beyond its range. Navigation protocols cannot resolve the contradiction. Then we follow the corridor system backward, the commander decides. Retrace our exact path. We try. But every corridor we entered before now branches into variations of itself. Every stairwell descends into multiple possible destinations. The ship has become labyrinthine not through malice but through accumulated existence, every possible path preserved and active, every journey overlapping until navigation becomes theological rather than spatial. The chronometer on my wrist displays 7 hours, 3 minutes, 49 seconds, then 12 hours, 1 minute, 11 seconds, then 3 hours, 57 minutes, 22 seconds. I stop checking it. Time has become ornamental, a number that changes without governing anything. We encounter a compartment. We recognize the fourth one we inspected on level 3, where occupants had hands fused to railings, but inside, the occupants are different, or the same but changed, or we are seeing them at different points in their existence simultaneously. A woman stands at a railing, hands slowly growing into the metal, flesh and steel merging incrementally. Nearby, another woman stands at the same railing, hand already fully merged, face set in exhausted acceptance. And beside her, a space where no one stands but the railing shows a hand-shaped impression, as if someone has always been there but has eroded into absence. This isn't possible, one of the armsmen whispers. Documented, I reply automatically, taking photographs that will show only what already exists in records. Spatial temporal anomaly, crew persistence across multiple states, non-linear progression of physical integration. The words are correct. The words are meaningless. I am fulfilling my duty, even as my duty loses all connection to purpose. We withdraw from the compartment and continue searching for an exit that must exist because we entered through it. Hours pass, or minutes, or no time at all. The Vox channels continue their overlapping transmissions, warnings and requests and prayers blending into constant background noise that has become more natural than silence. I hear my own voice occasionally, reporting findings, requesting guidance, slowly losing effect until I sound indistinguishable from the ship's permanent crew. The others deteriorate in ways I can observe externally. Commander Halk's posture remains rigid, but his eyes show increasing dislocation, as if command authority has become the only part of himself that persists. The armsmen move in tighter formation, checking corners that never change, maintaining procedure because procedure is the last structure supporting consciousness. The tech adept speaks less, his vocalizations reduced to binary cant that grows simpler, more repetitive, approaching machine language that requires no thought to execute. I continue documenting. My data slate fills with entries that repeat previous entries with minimal variation. Compartment assessment, crew status, atmospheric readings, spatial notation. The forms are familiar. The forms persist when everything else collapses. I find comfort in watching my stylus move across the screen, marking each field, completing each section, preparing reports that will be filed correctly even if they are never read. We find an exit, not the one we entered through a different seal, marked with different codes, leading to a cargo airlock that should exist on the opposite side of the ship from our entry point. But it opens outward, and beyond it lies a docking tube connecting to something outside, and outside is where we need to be. Commander Halks activates the seal. It opens smoothly, exhaling warm air that carries familiar scents: humanity, metal, recycled atmosphere. The docking tube beyond is standard naval construction, mag-locked to the ship's hull, leading to a shuttle or retrieval craft waiting in the void. We enter the tube, and I feel the ship release us, not grudgingly, not with resistance, but with the same calm indifference it demonstrated when we entered. We were always going to leave. The ship has no need to keep us. It has already received what it required. Inspection, verification, acknowledgement of its continued existence within Imperial systems. We have documented it. We have logged it. We have confirmed that it functions. That is sufficient. The tube connects to a naval shuttle, not the one that brought us, but functionally identical, marked with fleet designations that check valid against current deployment rosters. The pilot, visible through the cockpit viewport, waves acknowledgement. We board and seal the airlock behind us. The tube detaches. The shuttle's engines engage with a low rumble that vibrates through the deck. Distance opens between us and the merciful benediction. Through the shuttle's viewports, I see the plague ship hanging in the void, its hull illuminated by the cold light of distant stars. It looks functional, aged but maintained. A working vessel of the Imperial Navy, scarred by time and service, bearing the wounds any ship would bear after centuries of duty. The amber glow I saw inside is invisible from here. The spatial distortions do not register externally. It is just a ship, waiting for orders, ready to continue whatever function command assigns. "How long were we aboard?" Commander Halks asks the pilot. The pilot checks his chronometer. 11 hours, 53 minutes. You had 7 minutes remaining before scuttle deadline. 11 hours, 53 minutes. Exactly as scheduled. The countdown was accurate. The operation completed on time. I check my own chrono and see the same numbers: 7 minutes, 4 seconds remaining. As if the temporal collapse inside never occurred, or occurred within a framework that ultimately conformed to external reality, we left with time to spare. The night ended as planned. I look at my data slate. The logs are complete, properly formatted, all entries stamped and verified. I have documentation for every level we inspected, every crew member we encountered, every anomaly we observed. The photographs are crisp and clear. The atmospheric readings are precise. The cargo manifests are properly countersigned. Everything is correct. Everything is admissible. Status report, Commander Halk says, his voice recovering its authority as distance increases. The senior armsman provides casualty assessment. No injuries, no losses, all personnel accounted for. The tech adept confirms. No contamination detected. Atmospheric exposure within acceptable limits. Equipment functional. I offer my conclusion. Documentation complete. Audit findings ready for command review. Tithe verification pending higher authority approval. We sound professional. We sound intact. We sound like personnel who successfully completed a standard recovery operation. And perhaps we did. Perhaps everything we experienced was within normal parameters for plague shipboarding. Perhaps the Imperium has encountered this before, will encounter it again, has procedures already established for processing vessels that exist in multiple temporal states simultaneously. The shuttle docks with the fleet tender that serves as our operational base. We disembark and submit to quarantine screening standard procedure, nothing unexpected. Medicae servitors perform bioscans. Tech priests verify our equipment. Commissariat officers review our preliminary reports. Everything checks valid. We are cleared for debriefing in 6 hours. After rest and nutrition cycles restore us to optimal function. I am assigned temporary quarters, a small compartment with bunk, desk, and ablution alcove. Standard naval accommodation, indistinguishable from 10,000 identical spaces across the fleet. I secure my gear and sit at the desk, data slate open before me. The complete audit documentation awaits final review and submission. I begin reading through it methodically, checking each entry for accuracy. But the details blur as I read. I recorded crew members at stations, performing duties, maintaining their posts. I noted their exhaustion, their temporal confusion, their physical integration with the ship's systems. I documented it professionally, objectively, without judgment or recommendation. The words are precise, the observations are accurate, but reading them feels like reading someone else's work, as if I am reviewing reports submitted by an auditor I have never met. I close the data slate and sit in silence. The compartment is quiet, except for the ambient hum of the ship's systems, a sound so constant aboard Imperial vessels that it becomes invisible, noticed only in its absence. I listen to it now and hear something underneath. A rhythm, steady and slow, matching the pulse I felt aboard the Merciful Benediction. Every ship has this rhythm. Every vessel maintains this beat. The plague ship was not unique in that regard. It was simply louder, more evident, impossible to ignore. The chronometer on the wall displays the time, 4 hours until debriefing. I should rest. I should eat. I should prepare for the questions that will come, the review process that will determine what happens next. Instead, I sit and think about the uniform on the chair, sitting empty but perfectly maintained, waiting for someone who serves by being absent. I think about Commissar Weiss, standing at his post for decades, maintaining security protocols when there is nothing left to secure. I think about the crew members working without pause, tallying debts that will never be paid, processing cargo that fulfills requirements while transgressing every principle those requirements were meant to protect. I think about compliance. The Imperium functions through systems designed to persist when individuals fail. Orders are logged and countersigned. Tithes are measured and verified. Duties are assigned and maintained. The systems are meant to be indestructible, to outlast corruption, to contain chaos through the weight of accumulated procedure. What I witnessed aboard the Merciful Benediction was those systems working perfectly, executing their functions with absolute fidelity, long after the context that gave them meaning had collapsed. The crew persisted because their duties persisted. The ship functioned because it was designed to function. The tithe remained valid because validity is measured by stamps and codes rather than content or consequence. Nothing aboard that vessel violated Imperial law. Nothing technically qualified as heresy. It was all correct, all compliant, all properly processed. The horror was not that the system failed. The horror was that it succeeded exactly as designed. A soft chime indicates someone at my door. I open it and find a Munitorum courier, young and efficient, bearing a sealed data cylinder. Tithe Auditor Voss. Priority communication from Administration Command. I accept the cylinder and verify its authentication codes. Valid. I dismiss the courier and unseal the cylinder. Inside is a single document, brief and formal. Tithe Auditor, 3rd Class Harren Voss Operation Status Modified. Temporary assignment extended indefinitely. Personnel reassignment logged. New posting. Merciful benediction. Primary oversight capacity. Embarkation. Dawn cycle. Current date. Authorization. Munitorum Command. Subsector Logistics Division. Compliance mandatory. The Emperor protects. I read it 3 times. The words do not change. The authorization is legitimate. The order is lawful. I have been reassigned to permanent oversight aboard the plague ship, tasked with maintaining continuous audit presence to ensure the vessel's ongoing compliance with Imperial standards. It is a necessary position. Someone must verify that the ship continues to fulfill its functions. Someone must log its operations, document its condition, confirm that the tithe it carries remains valid. That someone is now me. The chronometer counts down toward dawn cycle. In a few hours I will report to the shuttle bay, reboard the Merciful Benediction, and take up residence in whatever compartment has been designated for permanent oversight personnel. I will have quarters there, a desk, access to ship systems, everything necessary to perform my duties. I will audit the tithe quarterly. I will inspect crew readiness. I will ensure that all procedures continue in proper sequence. I will stand at my post, just as Commissar Weiss stands at his, maintaining function because function must be maintained. I will work at my station, just as the crew works at theirs, fulfilling duties that persist beyond any individual's capacity to question their purpose. I will count and measure and log, adding my tallies to those already carved into metal, continuing the accounting that defines existence aboard that vessel. The Emperor protects through systems that function even when individuals do not. I begin packing my limited possessions. The process is automatic, mechanical, requiring no thought, uniform, data slate, authorization codes, prayer beads, everything necessary for continued service. I will not resist the reassignment. Resistance would be dereliction. The order is lawful. The duty is clear. I am Munitorum trained and Munitorum certified. I will perform the function I have been assigned to perform. Part of me, some fragment still capable of experiencing emotion distinct from duty, recognizes that this is punishment, not declared as such, never formally acknowledged, but punishment nonetheless. I authorize the continuation of Medicae servitors treating corpses. I validated tithe cargo that should have been rejected. I contributed to the decision to classify the ship as recoverable rather than recommending immediate scuttling. I participated in preserving the horror rather than ending it. And now I will maintain that preservation indefinitely, ensuring the horror continues correctly, documented properly, filed accurately. But another part, the larger part, the part trained by years of administrative service, understands that this is simply efficiency. I am familiar with the ship's systems. I have already documented its condition. Assigning me to permanent oversight eliminates the need to brief new personnel, prevents information loss, ensures continuity of record keeping. It is logical. It is appropriate. It is exactly what the Munitorum would do when faced with unusual assignment requirements. I am useful. Therefore, I will be used. Dawn cycle approaches. I finish packing and secure my compartment. The corridors outside are quiet. Most personnel either resting or on duty elsewhere. I walk alone toward the shuttle bay, carrying my single pack, my authorization cylinder, my data slate containing records that will eventually be archived in systems so vast that they might as well be infinite. No one stops me. No one questions my departure. I am simply another auditor moving between assignments, a functionary performing their designated role, The shuttle bay is empty except for the pilot and a single tech priest performing pre-flight maintenance. They do not acknowledge me beyond confirming my identity against manifest. I board and secure myself in the passenger compartment. The shuttle seals. The engines engage. Distance closes between the tender and the merciful benediction, that shape hanging in the void, waiting. I look out the viewport and see it clearly now. Not a cursed vessel, not an aberration, but a working example of what the Imperium becomes when it persists beyond all reasonable limitations. The crew serves because service is the only identity remaining. The systems function because they were designed to function forever. The ship continues because stopping would require someone with authority to order its cessation, and that authority has long since been absorbed into the same procedural loop that sustains everything aboard. We dock. The airlock opens. The familiar breath of warm air exhales into the shuttle. I unbuckle and stand, gathering my pack. The pilot wishes me well in a tone that suggests he does not expect to transport me away again. I nod acknowledgement and step through the airlock into the ship. The seal closes behind me with finality that is also routine. This is now my environment. This is now my post. I will work here until I cannot, and then my work will be continued by whoever comes next, and their work will be continued after them. On and on, tallies accumulating, prayers layering, duties persisting in perfect sequence. I walk through familiar corridors, following the route I memorized during the audit. The crew I pass nod greeting, recognizing me as the auditor, accepting my presence as they accept everything without question, without resistance, with the exhausted courtesy of those who have long since abandoned the distinction between choice and necessity. I reach the compartment designated for oversight personnel. It contains a bunk, a desk, a terminal linked to ship systems, everything necessary. I set down my pack and sit at the desk. The terminal activates at my touch, displaying logs that extend back decades, perhaps centuries, entries from previous auditors who held this position before me. I read the most recent entry. Tithe verification complete. All cargo within acceptable parameters. Crew compliance maintained. Ship systems functional. Operation continues as specified. Oversight will resume next cycle. The entry is dated 3 months ago. No name attached. Just the work, the documentation, the confirmation that everything proceeds correctly. I add my own entry, noting my arrival, confirming my assumption of duties, logging the beginning of my oversight tenure. The words flow automatically, proper phrasing memorized from training, each sentence fulfilling its required purpose. I finish the entry and sit back. The terminal hums softly. Around me, the ship maintains its rhythm, that pulse, steady and slow, that I first felt when the seal opened. I am inside it now. I am part of it. My breath begins to synchronize, my heartbeat adjusting to match, my existence gradually aligning with the vessel's established pattern. This is duty. This is service. This is what it means to be munitorum, to place function above self, to persist through documentation when all other meaning fails. I will perform this duty correctly. I will maintain precise records. I will ensure that the ship continues to fulfill Imperial requirements. I will count every measure of cargo, log every crew member's status, verify every procedural compliance. I will do this for days or years or decades, or until time becomes as meaningless as it is for everyone else aboard, and the work will continue because work is all that remains. And perhaps that is sufficient, and perhaps the Emperor protects through this persistence, through systems that function long after anyone remembers why they were created. The chronometer on the terminal displays the time. I should begin my first official inspection cycle. There are holds to verify, crew to assess, maintenance logs to review. The work never ends, because ending would require the ship to acknowledge cessation, and acknowledgement would break the perfect procedural loop that sustains everything. I stand. I gather my data slate. I walk toward the cargo holds, following corridors I now know intimately, passing crew members who acknowledge me with the same exhausted courtesy they show each other. We are colleagues now. bound by duty, united in compliance, persisting together in the warm amber glow that has become normal, that has always been normal, that will remain normal no matter how many boarding operations investigate, no matter how many auditors are assigned to verify, no matter how many times command reviews the documentation and decides that the ship remains sufficiently functional to continue. The Emperor measures all things. The Emperor remembers all service. The Emperor completes all accounts. We serve the completion. I descend into the cargo hold and begin the count.